Here we go.
We're gonna.
Hey there, it is time. It is here. It's right now. It's Docg presents. Actually, today and hopefully going forward, it's going to be Docg and Johnny T. That's me. Presents. So I want to thank Doc for all the abilities and opportunities here. And I want to introduce. We've got someone real great here today. Grammy Award winning artist, singer, songwriter. You may know him from, various places, including, I don't know, if you were like me back in about 87, watching Family Ties, and then listening to the radio right around that time for At This Moment. What would you do? What would you think I should do at this moment? Ladies and gentlemen, here he is again, Grammy Award winner, Billy Vera. Hi, Billy.
Welcome, Billy.
Hey, everybody.
Say hi to everybody on the radio, too. We have Smoking Bacon Radio listening and also Hamilton Radio.
Outstanding.
So we're glad to have you.
One quick correction.
Yes, please.
Pronounce my name Billy Vera, like Geraldo Rivera.
Vera, got it.
Yogi Vera.
Please. 1,000 pardons, because I've got one of those names too.
It's a common mistake. I remember when Dionne Warwick first came on the scene. The disc jockeys go, and here's a new one by Dionne Warwick.
Here's another great one. This is at about 1986. Little station. It's since gone through some incarnations, but it was Mix 106, WHLM, Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. Hey, good morning, everybody. And here's the newest one from Mr. Kyria. No, that would be Kyrie. Kyrie.
Yeah.
Well, incredible career. But let's talk about your career, Billy. We were talking off air about it, but a lot of this stuff that most of us don't even know about you. You started out in the early. You talked about your mom and your mom, and you talked about the '60s. Let's go through that a little bit. Let's talk about your early '60s, and then go from there all the way up to.
Yeah,
sure. I'd be happy to. Well, my mom was a singer. She started out as a soloist in Cincinnati, where she was a local celebrity there. And then when we came to New York, she by that time she was 30, and so that's a little old for in those days for a woman. So she learned how to sight read music, and so she could become a background singer. And so she ended up being in the Ray Charles Singers on the Perry Como show, and she sang on all of Como's hit records, Magic Moments, Catch a Falling Star, all those. And every week she'd be on there, letters, we get stacks, and and that was her job. And my dad, of course, was a radio and television announcer on NBC for 30 years. Ladies and gentlemen, and now the nightly news. One of those guys, big voices. And so I grew up in show business, and I think that growing up in a show business family gives you a professionalism that the average person doesn't come to the party with. So that was that. And, I used to go down to the shows with my mom. I get to see some of the stars, and got to see Fats Domino on there, who was a big hero of mine.
Nice.
And so, eventually, when Alan Freed came on the air, I was like 11 years old, and I fell in love with rock and roll. And then I saw American Bandstand, and one day there was Chuck Berry, and I said, I want to be him. And I got
Who wouldn't?
Yeah, really.
He's the coolest guy, to an 11-year-old boy. So, I just started that and took few lessons on the instruments, piano and guitar and drums. and I started writing some songs too. And over time, I joined a little high school band like everybody else, and we became locally popular. I was from White Plains, New York, where I grew up, rather there, and then we made a record, and it in those days you had what they call regional hits, and this record was called "My Heart Cries." Was one side of it. It was #1 in Pittsburgh, and
Great.
Connecticut, and then the other side, which I wrote, became a hit in Louisiana and Texas because I guess it appealed more to the southern ears.
Sure.
And so then, at that point, the company that we recorded for, they had a publishing division, and they said, "You got any more songs? That little song you wrote is a pretty good one." I said, "Yeah, I got songs, and so I brought him he took 2 or 3 of them, gave me a $35 advance.
Wow. Come on, man. Let's go.
Paid for the demo. In my little band, we came in and we did the demos. So a couple of weeks later, you're young and you're stupid, and I was expecting something to happen right away, Well, a couple of weeks later, he calls me up. He says, "Well, I got a record on one of your songs." I said, "Really?" I said, "Who? Joe Blow?" Snotty kid. He said, "No." He said, "Ricky Nelson." I said, "Ricky Nelson?
Oh.
He's white." Because I had written the song with this new girl singer, Dionne Warwick, in mind.
Right.
And I couldn't picture anybody but her singing. I didn't know that Burt Bacharach and Hal David had her all tied up. So Ricky, he said, "Don't," he said, "you ungrateful little putz." He said, "Ricky's going to do your song on the Ozzie and Harriet show for 5 weeks in a row.
Wow.
You're virtually guaranteed to have a hit record." And of course, it became a chart record, Mean Old World. And I said, "Wow, what an easy business this is. The first song I take to a publisher I get a big star to record it, and it goes on the charts." Well, of course, that's beginner's luck, so it wasn't. It was another year before I had another song recorded. But from there, in those days, it was a cottage industry.
Sure.
And so it was everybody's child did not become a rock and roll star in 1962, 63, 55. And so the old guys that ran the business, they didn't know anything. These old 40-year-old guys, and so if you were young, they figured you knew.
Yeah.
So it was easy to get hurt.
That assumption, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could write a song in the morning, and you could get on the train and go down the city and on Broadway and knock on doors, and somebody would listen to you.
Yeah.
And so I ended up with a job as a staff songwriter at a publishing company that happened to be owned by CBS and Columbia Records. And they put me together with this guy, Chip Taylor, who, as it turned out, went to my high school about 4 years ahead of me. And Chip was a great songwriter. He wrote Wild Thing, Angel of the Morning.
That's why I heard his name before. Go ahead.
Yep.
Great writer. And he really taught me a lot. One of the things he said was, he said, "Forget about trendy stuff." He said, "Try to write songs that you can picture people singing 20 years from now." He said, "That's where you make your money." I said, "Oh, I like that. That's good." And so I've always tried to do that ever since. And then he also taught me that, he said, songs are like short stories. They must have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Right.
And so what would happen is, they gave me a little office next to his and a little half a piano. And sometimes your boss would come in and say, "Hey, the Shirelles are recording next week. Write something for them. Tony Bennett's recording. Write something for him." And so what you would do is you'd listen to their records and you'd get an idea of their vocal range.
Right.
And the subject matter that they like to sing about. And you try to craft something that fit the artist. And sometimes it worked, and most of the time it did not. That's just the nature of the business. So, but I did okay. The first song Chip and I wrote together became a hit for Barbara Lewis, a song called "Make Me Belong to You."
Okay.
And in those days, you got cover records on your songs. So we must have had about 20, 25 around the world, different versions of "Make Me Belong to You." Even my hero, Fats Domino.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it was really. I finally got to meet him years later. We were on a show together, and the guy that introduced us said, this is Billy Vera. He wrote the song you recorded called "Make Me Belong to You," and he started singing it, man. And,
Wow.
And he said, I got 5 children down in New Orleans, and that's their favorite song of mine. I said, what? That wasn't a hit. How could they know? All the dozens and dozens of hits that Fats had. And so I figured he was just saying that to be nice.
Right.
Later, I was befriended by a fellow named Paul Gayton who grew up with Fats in New Orleans. And and he said, no. If Fats said it, he meant it. He said, because Fats is not sophisticated enough to bullshit.
Well, he's an old Southern guy, he's down home, relaxing, enjoying his music, and that's about it. I mean, there was nothing else to think about really back then.
The first time I ever went to a record store with my own money at age 12, I bought 3 records: Blueberry Hill by Fats Domino,
Yes,
Honky Tonk, and a record that today is fairly obscure, Priscilla by Eddie Cooley and the Dimples.
Oh
wow. You've got some rare songs there.
That was a hit in New York. Alan Freed played that one. Eddie Cooley ended up writing a song that made millions of dollars. He co-wrote Fever.
Oh, the one that Peggy.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, nice.
And of course, everybody from Peggy Lee to Little Willie John to Madonna has recorded.
Little Willie John.
Yeah. That's really awesome.
The first
John, do you have any questions for Billy?
What?
I was going to say, John, do you have any questions for Billy?
I just, as I have read up a little bit on you before the program here, and then just listening to you here, it's just interesting how many paths crossed with yours. Musically speaking. Tell me, who were some of the people who were, lack of a better term, who were the most engaging, more decent people, that you met? I mean, I'm sure that there's ones who, had an image, but once you met them, almost like Reggie Jackson back in the old New York Yankees days. Reggie was the man, Mr. October. Be 10 years old and try to get an autograph from him, and it was, "Go away, kid, you bother me." And I'm sure that those people exist, and in the music world. But who'd you come across, whether it was last week or in the early days, who really, really made a nice, positive, good impression on you?
Well, generally speaking, show business people are a family, and most of them are nice. Top of the list, Dolly Parton. I mean,
doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me.
That's her personality, yeah.
The nicest person. These guys did a documentary on me a couple of years ago, and Dolly was nice enough on her own dime in her own studio back in Nashville to tape something for the documentary.
Nice.
She didn't have to do that. She had recorded a song of mine called "I Really Got the Feeling." It became a #1 country hit in 1979.
Right on.
And so I had met her as a result of that. And some years later, when At This Moment was big, we had the same manager. And so I'd run into her at his Christmas parties and stuff. And she was always just, she'd reach out to me and be nice to me. And she's nice to everybody. And that's who she is.
I honestly have always gotten that impression from, you know, the time when she was on the Tonight Show with Carson, and he made the remark about he'd give about a week's pay to see what was underneath that dress. And she just, you know, she could, somebody else would have been highly offended.
Not
but
her.
you know what? She, you know what? I get the impression, you know what? I am what I am. I know what I am. And you know what? That was kind of funny.
Oh, yeah, she had a great sense of humor. I once spent a day with her in her tour bus. She was doing a gig back east, and I was invited. You know, she wanted to meet me. The guy I wanted, her assistant called. She wants to meet the guy that wrote that wonderful song. And
why not?
So I hung out with her. I brought my daughter, who was 12 at the time, and she was just playing around, and she was talking. She was really funny. On this shelf in her bus, there was a row of real shiny shoes, you know, like rhinestones and all that. And she said, "You know where I got them shoes? At the Goodwill. $6 a pair." She says, "You know," she says, "my fans, they wear, you know, they wear blue jeans and dungarees all day long. They drive tractors, my fans." She said, when they go to the show, they don't want to see nobody in blue jeans. They want to see a princess.
Yeah.
And that's what I give them. Wow. You know, so she's very aware, very, very, very smart woman.
Yeah. That's thinking. That is absolutely thinking.
I love that.
She crafted a personality that's unique in show business. So she's probably the top of the list when it comes to niceness. But a lot of the old time, you know, doo-woppers are cool too. You know, we were talking earlier. Willie Winfield of the Harptones just passed away, and he was just the sweetest guy. I loved the Coasters. I was very close with.
Very cool.
I played with them dozens of times, and
nice.
We were good friends. I learned all my comic timing. You know, later when I started acting.
Yes.
I got all my comic timing from what I learned from working with the Coasters.
Now, how did that unfold? That intrigues me.
The acting, you mean?
Well, the comic timing due to the Coasters.
Well, I just would watch their show, you know, from behind.
Is that right?
And I'd see how they delivered the lines of, you know, they wouldn't just sing their songs. They would make little skits out of the songs.
No kidding.
Yeah, and it was brilliant stuff. You know, old vaudeville humor, you know, low humor, but
sure,
it's still great. Yeah. About the acting, you know, Chip Taylor's brother was an actor named John Voight.
Maybe you heard of him.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. A little bit, yeah.
Some guy, you know.
Well, John was just starting out. He was older than Chip, which made him about 6 years older than me. I guess 7 years older than me. Also the same high school that I went to.
Nice.
And you know, John was making a name for himself in New York with a play called View from the Bridge.
Why?
And he made a lousy movie, and we went to see it loyally.
Of course.
And then he made a second movie called Midnight Cowboy.
Wow.
And
you know, I heard it. Everybody was talking at him about that for some reason. I don't know what that's all about.
Rip shot. Where's the drummer?
Thank you.
John is. I'm telling you, John is the guy that's, and he knows. He's good at that.
Very much. We're here all week, folks. Yeah.
Come early, stay late. You'll be glad you did. Pump the kids full of coffee, everybody, because we're staying up all night. 2 shows over the holiday weekend coming up at Grossinger's. Friday, Saturday, and a Sunday matinee, everybody.
Oh, God. So when I came to California in 1979, you know, John was already, he had just won an Oscar for a movie called Coming Home.
Yes.
And I'm playing the Troubadour every Monday night at midnight with my band.
Nice.
And we had become the hottest band in L.A. As a result of that, you know, lines around the block every Monday night at midnight get become
outstanding. That's just great. I love hearing that.
Good.
So John comes in and I hadn't seen him in years. He comes in with his acting coach, David Proval, who you might remember from Mean Streets. He was the bartender.
Oh, I'll be darned.
And he was in The Sopranos. He was the guy married to Tony Soprano's sister.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I know who he is.
So they come into the club, and then after the show, they come up to the dressing room, and John says, Billy, said, what I saw tonight, he said, I've never seen a singer do what you do. I said, what do you mean, John? He said, well, most singers, they get up on that stage and they sing at the audience.
Right.
I'm going to make you laugh. I'm going to make you cry. I'm going to make you horny. I'm going to make you dance. I'm going to make, they manipulate the audience. You don't do that, man. He said, you just lay it out there and then let them organically react in the way that they naturally, honestly would. He said, I'm still impressed with that. He said, you know what, you should really become an actor. I said, oh, John, I'm not good looking enough to be an actor, and I really don't have any interest in it. He said, no. He said, seriously. He said, I'm telling you. He said, you could become a great actor, not a good actor. Come to David's class. Well, okay. He's very persuasive.
Yes.
So I go, and I'm sitting out there in the little audience, and these two guys are up on stage. Stephen Bauer, who's at the time, his real name was Rocky Echeverria. He and Andy Garcia escaped from Cuba.
Oh my.
Castro, and they came to Hollywood together. And a guy named Chris Mulkey, and these guys were up there. They were really working out up there on stage, man. I said, wow. I said, this acting stuff isn't bullshit. I mean, this is real art. I mean, I could use this somehow. Because before I left New York, I had begun to work on something for myself, because as I said, I'd learned all my comic timing from the Coasters, and by that time I had been in the business for 15 years, and I was pretty good on stage. I knew how to work an audience. And I said, but there's got to be something else. There's got to be something where you can take the work deeper. I said, what if my best friend died this afternoon, and I have to go up on that stage and sing a comical song? What is my obligation as an artist? Is my obligation to the songwriter's vision, to the words on the page, or is my obligation to feel the death of my dear friend? Or is my obligation to somehow find a way to combine those things to something larger and greater that'll be more important than just making jokes?
Right.
And
right.
I said, if I could do this, if I could find a way to do this, I could maybe be great.
That's a heavy hypothetical situation, but I mean, I could see how that would be helpful.
Yeah. Well, I was never satisfied with just going out there and ring a ding ding, and here's the next song, folks. Nice to see you. Blah. That's easy.
Right.
Know? And so I started going to this class that John brought me to, and I started learning the tools to make that happen. And it made me a much better performer.
Oh, nice.
And then as a side thing, I started getting offers to be in plays.
Beautiful.
And then some TV shows, and then this movie. I got a movie called The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai.
Yeah, we remember that well.
Right. Wow.
Cult favorite to this day. I mean, people ask. Yesterday was the 37th anniversary of Buckaroo Banzai being in the theaters, and to this day, I mean, it's like something people remember me by.
Sure.
It was a great cast.
It's a cult classic. It really is.
Yeah, it is, and it was so much fun to make that movie because the director, he had come to see me in the club with the band, and he said, I didn't go out in the normal casting route, auditioning. He came to the club. He says, "Man," he said, "I love the way you improv up there on stage." He said, "I'd like to find a way to put you in this movie we're making." He said, "Come and audition." I said, "Okay." So I did, and I got the gig.
Beautiful.
And it was when we got to filming, he said, "Now look," he said, "I told you I like the way you improv." He said, "All I ask of you is," he said, "do what you want to do." He said, "But just tell me where you're going to stand so that I can have the cameraman follow you." And so it was a ball, and of course when the movie was finished, the studio made him cut out about a half hour of it because they thought it was going to be a big hit, which it was not. And they wanted to make sure that it could fit 5 times a day in the theaters.
Oh, gee.
Stupid reason for that, but people don't realize that the executives in the music business and the movie business and the television business aren't that bright.
They don't have no clue. Absolutely.
Yes. I'm just going to say, get out of my head, because I know some people who, and you mentioned regional or local earlier. I know people in the area. I know people in Northeast Pennsylvania. I know folks in North Central Pennsylvania, meaning like the Williamsport, Pennsylvania area, the Wilkes-Barre, Scranton area, Northeast PA, and other people around New Jersey, who play, not necessarily to butter their bread all the time, but some do. Some do. I worked with a gal years ago who was, what do they call her? Like the goddess of Susquehanna Valley rock and roll out in, again, North Central Pennsylvania. Yeah. And she's got it. I mean, she's what, 50 something going on 25. But she would always say, even, the people who would invite her or would agree to have her group in, it was always just some dopey ridiculousness. Well, now you have to do this, and of course you have to do that, and then we'll see about getting you booked. Really? Just not
get a different dress.
Yeah. Because the lights are going to come from a certain angle, and that, that red dress with your auburn hair really is not going to. Okay, really? Since when are you Johnny Versace? Please be quiet. Sit down and enjoy the extra revenue that it's going to come in due to this, performance. They're not very bright. You're exactly correct.
Yeah, but somehow they managed to keep their jobs politically or whatever reason.
Go figure.
I'm the only guy in the world does it like me. You can't avoid me.
Okay, fine.
It's usually most of these people keep their jobs by their ability to say no.
Right.
Because if you say no, you can't really make mistakes.
Correct.
Although, but then you're not taking any risks either, and unfortunately, a lot of the artists aren't getting played, and that's not a good thing either.
That's the big problem.
I was talking to a friend of mine when I was at Demento's house yesterday. I called up my friend back in Yonkers, who used to be a big shot at BMI. BMI is one of the 2 entities that collect money for songwriters, music publishers, playing on the air and stuff.
ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, the whole Megillah.
Yeah. Yep. So my friend Ralph was a big executive there for years, and he told me one time, he said, part of his job was to scout new singer-songwriters with eyes to see if BMI should give them an advance and sign them, rather than to ASCAP or CSAC. So one of the people he went to see was Billy Joel, and Billy played a set for everybody, and they played. I guess they played his songs, and my friend Ralph, he said, I wasn't impressed.
Oh,
He said, so I turned him down. He said, and boy, did I get a lot of crap from everybody at the office after.
well, if I'm thinking properly, Billy, and pardon me, but I think he did marginally successfully. I don't know. Ended up doing fairly well.
Yeah, they tell me that he plays Madison Square Garden once a month or something like that.
Yeah, that's the scuttlebutt. I'll be darned. And each time I've seen him. I saw him at the Garden. I'm going to say probably '84, and I saw him at whatever it was across from Giant Stadium, the Brendan Byrne Arena, the Izod Center, whatever they're calling it this week, in about I'm going to say mid '87 during the Bridge Tour. And, I was hoping that some people would show up to this young man's concert. Interesting to note that they were both packed to the rafters each time.
Sure.
So
well, that's New York and New Jersey. That's his area.
I actually have an interesting story about Billy Joel because I interviewed Liberty DeVito, and Liberty said I recently just talked to him maybe several months ago, and Liberty said he didn't get involved with Billy till later on after the Piano Man and other songs because he already had a drummer, but Liberty was into R&B, and when he first heard Billy, he said, I don't like that stuff so much.
Yeah.
I'm like, really? And that was, Piano Man was one of his biggest songs. I mean, he's known for that. But it's funny that, people that decide to get into something didn't really want to get into it. And like you're acting, the same thing. You didn't want to really do it, but you got pushed into it. And then Liberty got pushed into it, and he's like, the rest is history, I became the famous drummer for Liberty, for Billy Joel.
Long time.
And you can never live that down. And it's something that, you should actually, people should, think that's great from you because that was the best of your ability back then. Of course, he's older now. I mean, he's, like our ages, the 70s and 80s. But at the same time, he's still doing stuff. He's got his own other band and he's writing books just like you, Billy. We're going to talk about that. But, I acquiesce, but a lot of this stuff is stuff that we're forced into.
Well, it's like guys, how I, having years and years in marketing and in electronic media, I would ask people, are you familiar with the station? And one station in particular was a big Top Gun country music station. This is going back into the 80s and 90s when I was with them. Again, Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Still number one, has been since the 70s. The guy had a multi-line car dealership, every GM line except for, I think, Chevrolet. And he's like, I don't listen to that, shit kicking stuff. I'd say, Mama died and Daddy ate dirt for Christmas. I said, yes, I understand, Dave, but would it be okay with you if the people who did listen to it came in and purchased from you, even if they have to get their money out of the First National mattress? And he, I never thought of it that way. Meaning you don't necessarily initially need to be wild about it, whatever it might happen to be, but recognize that, man, people out there are going to love this, whether it's the acting, whether it's the drumming, whether it's, running a commercial on the big gun country station that you don't listen to. I don't need you to listen to it. I just need you to know it's going to be good for you. That's all. I don't need you to think you like Billy Joel's music, but I just need you to know it's going to be good for you, Lib. I don't need you, Billy, to, acting, schmacting. No, this is going to be good for you. People don't oftentimes have the ability to just bust that wall down even a little bit and do what you've done, which is nice. If nothing else, it's a teachable moment. It's a from a distance coaching opportunity for other people out there. Well, look at him. He wasn't keyed up about it, but look how well it's gone for them. Things of that ilk.
Well, that was the same thing that happened, when I got into voiceover. Which was I stumbled into it. I was, as I told G a little earlier, I had an expensive wife at the time.
That's the anti-oxymoron, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I was doing a radio show just for fun, for free, playing old R&B and rock and roll records.
Nice.
And 2 hours a week, and it was a very popular show here in LA. And one day I get a message in my box at the station. He's got an interesting voice. You believe him when he talks. Would he be interested in doing voiceovers? I was willing to try anything to make it at this point. And it was, as I said, it was what my dad did. He was an announcer on NBC for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so at first I said, okay, I'll try it. First one I did was for Nissan, and it just, my phone started ringing, and for the next 20 years, I was like one of the top guys in LA for voiceovers.
Beautiful.
And I probably made more money doing voiceovers than I've ever made in music. And,
Isn't that the truth?
And who would have thought? You know, who would have thought it? And now, as a result of that, and there's, you know, and since I only did union work, you know, Screen Actors Guild and AFTRA, I can live off my pensions. You know?
Well, and that once again is John Thielon. You can find me on Facebook.
It's all, you know, Billy, it's all about self-promotion though, you know, and if people feel that your product is good or whatever service you offer, it really doesn't matter. It's how good it sounds, but the production of it, right? The quality of it and your personal handprint on it. That's what makes the difference. When you have like corporations doing all this, it's not the same.
It's all in the packaging, folks. It's,
exactly.
Whether it's how you
voiceover, it's just not that. But you know, like for 5 years, I did all the comedy promos for CBS. You know, watch The Nanny tonight, 8/7 Central. You know, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All the intros, yeah.
You know, real simple stuff. But I live 5 minutes from CBS. So it was
beautiful
in the world, man. I'd go over there a couple of times a day, and for example, it got so big, the voiceovers part, that I, you know, I was acting had sort of changed. You ended up finding yourself doing feeding straight lines to the star on a stupid TV show.
Mm-hmm.
Great. The last one I did was an episode of Baywatch.
Okay.
And this was an extremely stupid show, stupid episode. I played
a stupid show.
I played a Brian Wilson type character. It opens up in flashback. I'm wearing a toupee, and I'm drunk on a bench in a dressing room, while my band is raping a groupie.
Oh wow!
Right? Cut to the present, where the daughter of the groupie is now killing everybody in the band.
Oh my!
And I'm next on the list because she thinks I was part of that, where I was really just passed out asleep.
Right.
So she takes me out on her yacht. Somehow this girl gets a yacht, and she hits me over the head, and ties me up and puts me in a rubber life raft and sets me adrift. And then while I'm adrift, she takes a rifle and she shoots a hole in the rubber life raft.
Oh, swell.
And I spend the whole day shooting this scene in the cold Pacific, shark-infested, dirty water.
Yay!
Until Hasselhoff comes and saves me. End of the day, we wrap the show for the day. I go over to CBS, where I make more money in a half hour than I made the whole week on Baywatch.
Yep.
And I said to myself, I said, my ego isn't so great that I need to see my mug on television anymore.
Yep.
Let me just take the money from these voiceovers and forget about acting on camera.
That's John Thielon. Find me on Facebook.
No, but you're right. Behind the scenes,
no, it's true enough.
Behind the scenes sometimes is even a better way. I've just found myself, I'm going to be a producer of a new TV show. And I got talked into that. And I also got talked into being a manager for a band in Australia that's now in South Africa. So Billy, we don't know where it's going to go. We just know that it goes one way or another.
And
so
it's
try it all.
I tongue in cheek point at my name. I mean, listen, I've been there and done that myself, and I agree. Making more money, in 20 minutes doing 3 takes of an Archie Bunker sounded like, oh geez, look at this, than I did, for a month worth at the radio station at one point. Oh, okay, but it just is what it is, and again, I agree with Gina. It's just funny, how we all just sort of back into these things. Again, I don't know, like Forrest Gump would say, I don't know if it's a destiny or for it's, we're all floating around all accidental like on a breeze. But I also, like he had said, and like Hanks said as that character in the movie, I do think it's kind of both, because if you don't have the ability, you don't have the chops, you don't have people who kind of sort of even a little bit know you're not going to get the acting, you're not going to get the voiceover, you're not going to get the musical opportunities that you got, and I just find, stories, and I almost hate this expression because somebody overused it in my business life, but I always like these stories and journeys that people go on. Here I am, here he is, White Plains, New York. And then, boom, all of a sudden everything unfolded how it did. Here I am in East Brunswick, New Jersey. Well, you know what? I still got, time on my side. We all do. There's Gene, in Hamilton, New Jersey, and there's somebody else and somebody else and somebody else. It's going to unfold. I just find it fascinating, Billy. I really do.
Yeah, it's interesting how, well, you take the biggest break of all for me was, after the record company went out of business, after we had I Can Take Care of Myself.
Mm-hmm.
Which I love. It's still a great song, by the way. I love that song.
Yes. Thank you. Well, we went 5 years without a record deal. By that time I was 36 years old, too old to be a rock and roll star.
Right.
And so I was eking out a living, playing Thug of the Week on this or that TV show. When you're from New York, that's what they hire you for.
Yeah.
This week I'm a hitman. Next week I'm a school teacher. It's something. But I was surviving, and then one day the golden phone call comes. Hello, is this the Billy Vera that has the band? I said, yes. Oh, good, man. We couldn't find you. My secretary was calling all over L.A. I was in the phone book. I was always afraid I might miss something.
I'm in the book.
The guy says, my name's Michael Whitehorn. I produce and write a show called Family Ties, which I was aware was the #2 show in the country at the time after Cosby.
Right.
He said, we were at the club the other night and we heard you sing a song that we thought might be good for an episode we have coming up.
Beautiful.
And I said, oh, cool. What's the name of the song? I don't know. Well, at this moment, it's a lousy title. I admit that. And nobody ever remembers it, which is why because it's a lousy title. People always say, well, yeah, I like that song you sing. What did you think? I like that song you sing there called If I Could Just Hold You Again.
That's the other one, yeah.
Give me a break, please.
At this moment, people. At this moment.
It's a lousy title. If it was a good title, they would remember it.
Well, okay.
It's probably the greatest weakness of the song. Anyway, we finally determined what the song was. I said, oh yeah, call Warner Brothers and license it from them. Okay, great. So used it on the show.
Yep.
And I had songs on TV shows before. You make a few $100 and it's nice. And but this time I got mail. What's that song? Who's the singer? Blah blah blah.
Yes.
Wow. I said, people must like this song. And so I said, maybe we had recorded the song for Alpha before. It had gone to like number 79, and then the company went out of business. So I called up whoever would ever pick up the phone to me at this point in the business. And nobody was interested in letting me do another version of it. Until finally I'm having one of my periodic lunches with a friend of mine, Richard Foos, who owned a label called Rhino Records.
Yes.
And Rhino put out oldies, mostly in novelty records. And he and I would have these lunches where we'd have these mock arguments about whose version of Mustang Sally is the best. And so in the course of this lunch, I said, Richard, I said, how many records? I told him the story about Family Ties. And I said, how many records do you need to sell to break even? He said, well, we have a small company here, low overhead. We could probably break even on a couple of thousand. I said, what if I guarantee you 2,000 sales? I could sell them in the clubs if I have to. And he liked me, so he said, sure, I'll do it. And so by the time they got the album out, we missed the reruns. But the following season, they do an episode where the girl breaks up with Michael J. Fox.
Yep.
Now this time, the story of the song, Boy Loses Girl, matched the story of the episode, Boy Loses Girl. And America went berserk.
On the train to Lancaster, Pennsylvania. But I digress. Go ahead.
NBC said that they had more mail and phone calls for this song than in the history of the network.
Beautiful.
And next thing you know, people are calling. And this time, the people that answered the phone were going, oh, yeah, the singer is Billy Vera. The name of the song is At This Moment. So now people are armed with this information. They're calling radio stations, record stores. And Rhino was not a company that was geared to promote. They put out oldies. They don't need promotion.
Right.
So this was an organic, that rarity in the business, a grassroots organic hit. And the next thing you know, it's leaping over Madonna. It's leaping over Bon Jovi. Next thing you know, we got a #1 record. I'm 42 years old.
Yep.
And Dick Clark comes calling up, come on the show. Wow. So here I am with my bald head, 42 years old, singing to 15-year-old girls. And my life changed.
I bet.
My life changed on that one phone call.
Look at all the weddings it was in.
Oh, please.
Every wedding I know. And here's the thing, Billy, you're right, because a lot of people said, I love that song, but what is it called? All the time. I wish you had named it something else.
Choice for a wedding song of all time. I refused to do that song for a wedding. I said, don't you listen to the words, you schmuck? I mean, it's about loss. I got a good wedding song for you. It's called Hopeless Romantic. It's a great song.
Yeah.
But I don't know. People are stupid.
I just love that song. I need to at my wedding.
I think the only words they heard as At This Moment. That's the only words I think they ever heard, but they can't say this name of the song.
Like the melody. Most people don't even listen to the words. I go to all the it always pisses me off. I go to all the trouble to really be a good songwriter and write great lyrics. And with I Can Take Care of Myself, another perfect example. Oh, Billy, man, that song, it's so uplifting. I can take care of myself. Don't you listen to it, schmuck? I said, the song is about a stupid guy who thinks he can take care of himself. And this girl walks all over him. And I give up. I just write them. I put them out there. If people buy it, I don't care why.
And that's it. If people are going to interpret them a different way, as long as they're sending you money and liking the song, that's all we really want.
Yeah.
Well, I understand too, Billy. That I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The thing about At This Moment was that it crossed every demographic.
Yeah.
We had junior high school kids that made it their prom song. We had 65-year-old couples that made it their song. It was big on the country charts. It was big on the R&B charts. It was big on the pop charts. It was big on the adult contemporary. It just crossed every single demographic line. It was one of those rare occurrences in the music business where a song does that. And of course, then I've got a lot of covers on it too. Tom Jones did a version, Frida Payne, Rita Coolidge, and then most of all, Michael Bublé. About 20 years later.
Oh my!
Michael Bublé sold about 10.5 million records.
Oh wow! And of course, the live version is the one I always ever hear on the radio.
Well, yeah.
My live version?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't ever hear the studio version. It's always
No.
the live version because you can hear the people in the background talking or screaming.
There never was a studio version out for sale.
Oh, it's always been the live version.
Yeah,
Okay, I didn't know that.
When Alpha signed us, was because we were the hottest band in town, and they said, you know, you ought to do a live album like James Brown, capture that joy that you guys make on stage, and so which I think was a great idea. But when we did it for Family Ties, they asked us to go in the studio and do a studio version, so that in the middle of the love scene where Michael J. Fox and the girl are, you know, being sweetie with each other, somebody,
Right.
yeah, sing it, Billy. And it hurts the mood.
Probably not appropriate.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Well, you mentioned crossing the demos. I mean, that again is when I was out once again in Williamsport, now market like 280 salute, you know, for Country 105 WILQ. And of course, you know, the music director at that point put it on the air as a country, part of the country rotation, because, you know, there's a steel guitar in there. Okay, it's popular. Let's slip it in. This is, again, 1987. I left the station twice, okay? Came back twice. In 1996, it still was being played. And people would still call for it. Hey, could you play that Billy Vera and the Beaters song again? Yeah, who is this? Oh, this is, you know, Joe Muckenfudge calling from, you know, Turbitville. You know, oh, okay, thanks, Joe. Hey, appreciate you listening, you know, is what the DJs would say. And I knew them. The morning man, and from that time is a very dear personal friend, and even the midday and the afternoon and the evening guys I'm still very good friends with, and they would get calls for this thing 9 and almost 10 years later. So you know what, you hit lightning in a jug on that one, Bill. You really and truthfully,
you know,
yeah,
it's at the point now where it's considered to be a standard, the song, you know?
Agreed.
Hey, Billy, we got about 10 minutes left because I know you got to get out of here, but I want to talk a little bit about your book that you got coming out. And also, what did you do on Boy Meets World? Because I used to watch that all the time.
What did I do? I think I played a musician or something. I can't remember.
Okay.
You know,
I don't remember. I remember the show, but I don't remember you being in the show. Maybe as a, you know, like a cameo or something like that.
No, it was. I think you know, I did 2 shows the same week, and they were both basically the same story.
Oh.
It was a bunch of old band members got back together, and I can't remember the name of the other show, even, to be honest with you. I think
Punky Brewster.
Huh?
Punky Brewster. I don't know.
I don't remember. I don't remember the show either.
No, I understand.
There was so many shows out at one point. There was like just they back to back, and
yeah, you know, you just knocked them out.
Yeah. So what's your story about Rick Dees?
Rick Dees, we had the same manager.
And that's the Disco Duck guy, everybody. That
Yes.
know.
Yeah. Well, we had the same manager, and Rick, according to the manager, wanted to be Johnny Carson. Of course, there's only one Johnny Carson.
Of course.
And so he said, my job as his manager is to try to make that happen for him. So they go to ABC, and they weren't really that excited about it. So they said, well, what if we make the house band that's never been done before, a band that people have heard of? Maybe that'll draw more people. So they threw us into the mix. And then at that point, ABC did their research, and they said, okay, it's worth a shot. So we go on, and the show was pretty terrible. You know, Rick is great on radio. Television, not so much. And
Right.
and it was produced badly. It just the ideas were childish. You know, and you know, your audience at 11:30 at night is adults, is grown up. And so they bring on these contemporary hit record acts that no grown up gives a damn about. and I did my best. I tried. I said, why don't you bring on a Frankie Valli? Why don't you bring on a Dion DiMucci? Why don't you bring on a Rawls? Why don't you bring on a Merle Haggard? And they did. to their credit, and those nights, it was more interesting.
Yeah.
And we got to play for some really cool people.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, of course, I got to write the theme song, which, made some more shekels. And
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, it lasted a year, and then it died a merciful death.
Now, when would this have been, Billy?
1990.
Gotcha.
1990. And the good thing was that my guys in my band were able to get a steady paycheck for the first time.
Oh,
That's
good.
That matters. That's good.
Doing a show, and so it was worth it from that standpoint.
Billy, what about your producing days? You produced Lou Rawls.
Yeah, that came about. Bruce Lundvall of Blue Note Records, the great jazz label, which is owned by Capitol Records, he decided to sign Lou. And he said, Lou at that time had been making these really lame albums. I call them Vegas disco records.
Oh.
They're terrible records. Nobody was buying them. So Lundvall, the boss at Blue Note, his idea was, why don't you let's take him back to the kind of music he made at the beginning of his career, the kind of music that people first loved him for, jazz and blues.
Yeah.
He said, use some of your songs. You write great songs. So we took him, and his manager said, take him to New York and record him. Forget about, he said, so his friends won't be hanging around the studio.
Nice.
So we go to New York. We hired some of the greatest backup musicians in the world: Richard T., Cornell Dupree, Stanley Turrentine, Fathead Newman. I got him to do a duet with Ray Charles.
Oh, nice.
Diane Reeves, the great jazz singer. And wow. We made a wonderful album. He ended up doing 7 of my songs over the course of 3 albums. And nice. And the first album went to #1 on the jazz charts.
Oh.
And it brought his career back, really, recording-wise. He always had a great live career, playing all over the country. But, and plus he was enjoying himself for the first time in years because I picked great songs for him. I got a good ear for songs, which I learned from Jerry Wexler at Atlantic Records, who was a great song man. And it was great fun. We did 3 albums. They all went in the top 5 with him, and then he moved on. And then about 5 or 6 years later, his manager called me up. He said, "Man, I'm having trouble getting Lou a record deal." I said, "What, Lou Rawls? You can't get him a record deal?" He said,
Really?
They want Janet Jackson and crap like that. They think he's too old. He's 53 now. I said, "Oh my God, it's incredible! One of the great voices of our business, Lou Rawls."
Yeah, yeah.
He says, "You got any ideas?" I thought for a minute. I said, when this happens, I'm not above a gimmick. What do you mean a gimmick? I said, what about Old Brown Eyes sings Old Blue Eyes? We'll do a Sinatra album.
Wow.
Sinatra song.
I love the concept.
Yeah.
Never been done before.
No, and I was doing some reissue work for the old jazz label Savoy Records out of Newark, New Jersey.
Mm-hmm. Great. Wow.
And,
Savoy.
And so they went for it. And so I got Benny Golson, the great jazz saxophonist, who was a friend of mine, and had him write the arrangements. And we went into Capitol Studios, and we did an album of Sinatra songs that I chose for him, and it came out nice. And it ended up being on even on Little Savoy Records, it ended up being on the charts for about 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
And that ended up being the last album of his career. And after not too long after that, he got cancer and passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry. I like to check that album out. I mean, I do a thing with Frank Sinatra every now and then called Frank Sinatra and Friends.
Yeah, well, it's called. I think it may be out of print, but you may be able to find it on Amazon. It's called Rawls Sings Sinatra.
Rawls Sings Sinatra. Okay, cool. And what about your book, Billy? Tell us a little bit.
Yeah, tell us about this book.
Well, people have been after me for years write. Why don't you, you tell great stories. Why don't you write some of them down? Why don't you write an autobiography? I don't want it. Nobody gives a damn about it.
It's that push again. People pushing me. I know.
I don't. Who wants to? I'm not a big enough name for that. I talked to a book agent, and they said, "You're not a big enough name."
Oh, great, thanks.
And, well, there's nothing like show business to keep your
keep you humble.
Keep you humble. Yes, I'll have the decaf and the slice of humble pie. Thank you.
Yeah. So finally, I got tired of people pushing me. And I said, well, maybe I'll try it. See if I can write it. I wrote a lot of articles about old music, and a lot of articles, and liner notes for CDs and stuff. And so my writing chops had gotten pretty good.
Nice.
So I just sat down and I wrote this son of a bitch, and we finally got a publisher, and they gave me an advance.
Nice, very nice.
$5,000 advance, to put my book out. Go Harlem to Hollywood. The Harlem part being because I first got known nationally from playing the Apollo Theater with Judy Clay.
Right.
Of course, I moved to Hollywood, and then eventually that became a documentary called Harlem to Hollywood, which you can find on Amazon Prime.
Nice.
So that led to another book. A couple years later, I used to do I was in charge of the catalog for the old record company, Specialty Records. It had Little Richard, Sam Cooke, Lloyd Price, great early rock and roll and R&B record company.
Right.
So I was approached by a publisher. We're doing a series of books on independent record labels. Would you be interested in writing one on Specialty Records? Well, nobody knew Specialty better than I did. I was still friends with the founder of the company, who's 103 years old and sharper than all three of us put together. So I had that, and I had Xeroxed a lot of the session contracts and the correspondence from the files. So in terms of accuracy, I knew I could write a good book.
Sure.
And that's called Rip It Up, the Specialty Records Story.
Oh, wonderful.
If you're interested in old music, it's really a good book. And then finally, with those two under my belt, I said, maybe I'll try. I woke up one morning with this whole scene in my head where this guy, 65-year-old guitar player named Johnny Santoro, he had hoped to be retired on a beach somewhere, but his fiscal considerations led him to still play guitar for Bonnie Raitt.
Oh.
So he's in Austin, Texas on a gig in a hotel room with a 19-year-old girl that he met at the show. And he's coming out of the shower when he hears her scream. And he goes in there, and she's tears coming down her cheeks, and she's watching television, and it was 9/11.
Oh. Wow.
No, it was not 9/11. It was the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And just as that happened, that the entire city of Los Angeles is destroyed by a nuclear bomb. And it starts there. And I said,
wow.
Maybe that'd be a cool place to start a book. Maybe I can make a novel out of this. And so I just sat down, and it sort of came to me. It was like these wonderful characters came knocking at my door. I'm your guy. I should have something to say here at this point of your story. And it was that weird.
Wow.
And so the story takes place in a couple of locations. Johnny's uncle, Nicky, is the head of the New Orleans Mafia. And he's at 98 years old. So some of the action takes place in New Orleans. And then the girl is a little rich girl, old money rich girl from Old Greenwich, Connecticut. So they go up there, and then his guitar tech, his best friend Pete, is from White Plains. So there's a lot of the action takes place in those three places and in Italian Harlem in New York, where Uncle Nicky's friend Vito runs the mob in Italian Harlem. So it's wonderful characters, an interesting and very different story. It's part mafia tale, part political satire.
Wow.
I make fun of both sides, so both Republicans and Democrats will be mad at me. And I
equal opportunity
if the book becomes a hit.
That's incredible, Billy. But we got to let you go in a couple minutes. John, do you have any last questions for?
Just really quickly, tell me the name of that third book again.
Oh, I never told you, did I? It's called A Dollop of Toothpaste.
A dollop. I'm writing all this down.
You know, the ironic thing was, I was watching television the other night. I don't even remember what show I was watching, and somebody said, "A dollop of toothpaste."
See?
You must have read it.
It
must have read it.
You know?
It's kismet.
Or they were walking by and they saw your book there and they just
Could be.
There it is.
it's subconscious too. But Billy, thanks for being here. We really appreciate your time. Do you have a chance to do a sweeper for us for the show? All right, just basically just say who you are, and you're listening to the Docg and John T Presents show, and you're on Hamilton Radio, and then I'll play it around your songs and different things.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Hi, I'm Billy Vera, and I'm here with. Hi, I'm Billy Vera, and I'm here with Docg and JT, and I'm hoping you watch them every single day of your life.
And you're listening to Hamilton Radio.
Huh?
And you're listening to Hamilton Radio, so I can play it with your songs.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Billy Vera. You're listening to Hamilton Radio with Docg and JT.
Thank you, brother.
Okay.
We appreciate the time. You were really, really good, and we hope our audience. I'm sure they're pleased.
Well, I was going to say, and don't forget, whomever was watching, whether it's right here live or as we replay this, don't forget Billy's books, Hamilton to Hollywood, Rip It Up, the special records.
Harlem to Hollywood.
I'm sorry, Harlem. What did I say? Hamilton. I got Hamilton on the brain. Okay, take two. Hi, don't forget to look for Billy's books, Billy Vera's books, See, I did it again. Harlem to Hollywood. Harlem to Hollywood. That sounds like a very great story, as does Rip It Up, the specialty record story, and of course, a dollop of toothpaste. Yeah, now you can find these where, Billy, on Amazon or in local shops?
Amazon, along with my CDs, and the latest one of CD is called Timeless.
Fantastic, then.
Thank you.
I'm hoping everybody picks them up, has an enjoyable listen, a good read, and even a documentary, the Harlem to Hollywood documentary on Amazon Prime. Thank you, Billy, big time.
What an incredible career you've had, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. Maybe next time, if we ever get a chance again, we could talk a little bit about the Tonight Show stories and, get in deeper other things. But I'm sure you'll have other things coming out soon after that, too.
I'll be happy to come back whenever you need me, man.
Thank you, Billy. We really appreciate it. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye. Bye. All right, there you go, John. First show under the belt. What'd you think?
I liked it. What did you think?
Oh, I always love interviewing celebrities like Billy Vera.
Yeah.
And we're still on the air, but I mean, I'm just happy. And we have Rita Lee tomorrow. Let me see what time it is.
Well, and I would say, we're still going, so to speak. But you know what? Like Bob Murphy, who used to broadcast Mets baseball, used to say whenever there was a good game, afterwards he would say, "I'll be back with the happy recap." And it seems like, Gino, this is certainly a happy recap.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But we have Rita Lee tomorrow at 2:00, guys. If you want to be here,
yes,
you can listen to that. And
I'll be here.
I have Heart to Heart at 4:00, which is Steve Folsom and another person from the original band Heart.
Right.
And coming up on Friday, I have Docg, which is a musician from, I believe, the UK.
Yes.
At 2:00. And that's all as well confirmed. So we'll see where that goes. And this is a big thing, guys. 8 p.m. We have the actually, we're going to be doing the shooting for the grand jury. So if you guys know this show or you want to be part of this show, this new TV show, we're going to shoot 10 shows for one season. And after that, after you're on the first season, we'll talk about all the arrangements and how you get paid and everything. But the thing is, if this is an iconic show, which I really think it's going to be, this is going to be incredible for anybody that steps in right now.
I agree. This is this coming Friday evening, 8:00 to come in on this. And if you're interested in being part of the actual grand jury on the show, send an email saying that you're interested. Send it along to admin at Hamilton Radio, all one word, admin at hamiltonradio.net. Now, if by chance we need to do a reschedule, because again, it's Friday and a lot of folks have things going on, especially in the summer. If we have to reschedule, it's no big deal. We'll likely, Gene, correct me if I'm wrong here, we'll likely do it on this coming Tuesday.
Correct. Yeah, because that's the only days, the 2 days that our executive producer can be with us. And he's the one that's going to be telling us what to do, and then we'll be telling you guys what to do. So, and
that's the 17th. And don't have any fear about you have to go anywhere. If you'd all remember the beginning of the Brady Bunch with all the squares of people, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be like a Zoom, or very similar like what we're doing here on StreamYard. It's going to be a Zoom-like or a StreamYard-like event to where we're all going to be pictured on a grid, but working together as jurors, so to speak. It's going to be compelling. It's going to be an interesting situation. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think. And it's, what, we do this even kind of right. Stick with us, stick and stay, because again, like Gene said here, down the road, there's going to be other opportunities of several different ilks with this program, the grand jury, and quite possibly with other things. So it behooves you to be a friend and be a participant and be a fan of Hamilton Radio, hamiltonradio.net.
Absolutely. And there's a new website coming very soon too, guys. We'll let you know when it comes out, and the new channel will be out on the Roku very soon. And a lot of this stuff that we do will be on the Roku channel. So you won't have to worry about going to YouTube. If YouTube bans us, we'll be able to see it on the Roku channel.
More about that as it unfolds, no doubt.
Absolutely. So thanks everybody for listening. John, thanks for being a co-host. And
thank you, Gene.
I hope everybody enjoyed it. I know Billy was very, very entertaining, very understanding, and very, very just open to a lot of different things, which I love about entertainers. If the more open they are, the more we can easily just relax and talk to them. And
that's the bottom line. That really is the bottom line. And again, I'm going to read you one more time his books and documentaries. First of all, again, Harlem to Hollywood. That's his story, basically, the Billy Vera story. You can get that book on Amazon, or you can on Amazon Prime, you can get the documentary, because they did a documentary about it as well. The other two books are called Rip It Up, the Specialty Records Story, and A Dollop of Toothpaste is the third book, which is basically all about stories and whatnot from, from a, shall we say, Costa Nostra-like perspective. Lots of fun. Good
very
reads,
good
times.
Very good putting it that way. Bye, everybody. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Yeah. Thank you, Gino. Much appreciated. There he is,
Bye.
Gino.